Let's see. All right. Good morning. Thanks for coming, and thanks for those that are watching online. Hey, today I'm going to walk through our vision for the future of JSC. I did want to mention a couple things, so if you want to ask me a question, because there will be time today, you can get on to jsc.cnf.io, and you can put in a question like, why does Geyer keep talking about the Cardinals, even though they're an awesome team? And then other people can vote it up or down, and so this is something Station did. I think it's a good idea, and then we're gonna ask, no kidding, we're gonna ask the questions that get the highest votes. So if you get a chance to get in and do that, and there will be time at the end. Before I start, though, I want to, you know this already, but I want to reintroduce my new Deputy Center Director, Vanessa Wyche. Yeah, come on up. So you know Vanessa. Vanessa's worked on almost every program that we have here at JSC, as well as, that's a good thing, actually, and as well as being a participant in key leadership roles across JSC. She did a term as the Deputy Center Director for a while. She was the Associate Director and, of course, Head of EISD, which is huge for us. She complements my style. She has a better sense of humor than I do. And she'll be a huge asset for me. I mean, boy, this last few weeks that she's been here has been a great relief for me and a great asset for the center. So, Vanessa.
Lord, just a little. Thank you. And I just want to say how very excited I am and honored to be your Deputy Director, and very thankful to Mark for selecting me for the position. As Mark mentioned, I've had several roles across the center, so many of you know me, but for those that I have not met yet, I look forward to meeting each and every one of you. I want you to know that I'm committed to the continued success of our mission and the continued success of this organization that starts with you. As Mark presents today, he's going to tell you about what we're doing going forward into the future, and I just want you to know that I am all in. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah. All right, great. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide. So we had some folks here. You might have heard about it. Vice President was here last Thursday. It's so funny how that happened. It was like 4 days ahead. Hey, he's coming. Do you know about it? No, I don't know anything about it. But it's just a testament to, there's a huge amount of folks at this center that worked really hard to make this happen. You can imagine with the Vice President, there's a lot of work, security and other things to make these kind of things happen. So we got on the front page of the Chronicle again. You're going to see that repeated a few times through this presentation. Of course, it was a great speech, and I think if you focus on, well, first he called you a national asset, which is nice. Nice to be a national asset. I think that's positive. It is a very positive thing. And also about the larger budget was a big deal, and about going to the moon. So I think he really pulled on those points, which was very important. And of course, on the right, Jim Bridenstine, he was here twice in 3 weeks. Came here for the commercial crew announcement, and also came with the Vice President, and that's him in the AA2 module. And of course, Jim always does a nice job talking about the policy and helping us figure out where we fit in the world. So it was really, really great to have them both here. So if we go, what I'm going to do now is talk a little bit about where we are in the different programs. So we go to Space Station. There we go. So a lot of you know that we're setting records on utilization, and a lot of you are making that happen every day. Also, nearly flawless execution when you think about 18 years with people and 20 years of flying ISS, really incredible, and all of you make it look easy, even though we know that it is not easy. If you remember, the Vice President said that he reaffirmed that ISS is an unqualified success. Of course, then there was a lot of applause, and so you might not have heard the next part of his speech where he said, you know, the men and women of JSC deserve the credit for the history they've made. So I think that's really, really important that he recognized that. So the other thing that's going on, which is, of course, is a big deal, is talking about commercialization of LEO and what that means for Station beyond 2025. As part of that, we've The station program has basically picked 13 or awarded 13 studies to go look at, and people who say and have had experience with looking at commercialization of LEO. We've awarded some study contracts for them to come back and tell us about how we might create demand in low Earth orbit, what NASA can do to enable, what we can do to get out of the way, really. So this gives us very important information so we can put a plan together. And I think more important than the dates that are talked about is that we need a plan. What is our plan for the long-term use of ISS and how we foster that commercial capability. The other key thing is that we cannot have a gap in LEO. We can't afford stopping something, and because we know we have requirements in low Earth orbit, and we will forever, right? Whether it's more research or it's getting crews ready for deep space, we're going to have work in LEO, and we cannot have a gap. So this is it's one thing to have a policy, but this is the work that the station is doing today, is coming and doing the hard work to really figure out what a good plan would be while we continue to utilize and get everything we can out of space station. So let's see if I go to the next page. So obviously commercial crew is a big deal, and on the right you can see the Demo 1 article going in the thermal vac at Plumbrook, and so those tests went very well. And on the right is a service module for Boeing. Really, it's actually a beautiful piece of hardware when you look at it. Both of those are coming together very quickly. You know, about 4 weeks ago, we announced the cruise. That was another thing would have been hard to miss, which was really exciting. And again, that's something that we were told we were going to do a week ahead of time. And the team here did an incredible job, and we appreciate the folks at Kennedy, too, in helping transition that here. And, of course, Jim did an awesome job, as well as everybody else. And we got on the front page again. So, again, that's positive. We know we're doing hard, important work, but we're making the front page now. Seems like it's becoming a habit. So the providers are getting very close. We know that Demo 1 is already at the Cape now being processed. That's the first uncrewed SpaceX flight. And Boeing is getting ready to send their first article to start doing a qualification test, which is the next big step for them. So huge amount of work. I'll talk a little bit in a bit about kind of us getting ready for flight on that. Let's see. So, and a lot of you are doing huge amount of works going through certification and testing to help them get ready. So Orion also, repeating the theme, Orion, the EFT1 article was on the front lawn of the White House and made the front page of the New York Times, which I haven't seen in a long time. That was a great event, and actually I appreciate the work Lockheed did in making that happen, because it got us a lot of good press. On the far right, of course, we made the front page of the Chronicle again, this time on AA2, which is an important flight test of the abort system and is led and integrated by the folks right here at JSC, and so that was a really nice article about the work that we're doing there. And in the middle, you see the team in Florida putting the heat shield on the crew module, and then on the bottom is the EM2 article, which is now complete and actually in Florida. Excuse me, the structure is now completed in Florida. So all those pieces coming together, huge amount of work. So we've had all these things that we're doing in the last year, incredible amount of work, and yet on top of that, a lot of you have had to spend a huge amount of your personal lives recovering from Harvey, right? This was about a year ago it happened, and I know I have some really good friends and coworkers who just recently got back into their houses. So when you think about all of this work, and yet on top of that, all this in the background, which has been a huge, huge deal. So we need to remember and continue to support those friends of ours that are still working through that, and some of that's going to take a very long time. But when I think of that, on top of that we've accomplished is incredible. So you might remember this is our mission statement. It's still our mission statement that we lead human exploration, so that hasn't changed. And you see all the evidence of that in the work that we just talked about. So at the last all hands, you might remember I talked about a few things. And first of all, I talked about the cadence, the launch tempo that's coming. And of course, many of you support ISS, which means we've never stopped flying. It's just a little bit different when you start flying from Florida, and that's going to ramp up. And you see that we have a flight possibly at the end of 18, but we have a bunch of flights in 19. We have AA2 in 19. We have EM1, which is we say is in 19. I think really it'll be probably middle of 20, but anyway, all that work is coming together. Huge amount of work in the next 2 years that we've talked about. And then also talked about that we have these new missions coming, Gateway and others, and so there's going to be, we need to think about those in new ways, so we have to think about how we might transform ourselves going into the future. So remember, that's what I talked about just 2 months ago. So let's see, what I did was, this chart is very big, so sometimes it takes a while to move. So next chart, see if we can get it. There we go. So we formed 3 teams of leaders across JSC, and we charged them with 3 things. I wanted to talk about launch tempo, I wanted to talk about how we transform JSC, and I wanted to talk about something that Robert Lightfoot has talked about many times, which is risk leadership. So we set off those 3 teams. I wasn't going to read the names, but all of them are on there. I think Perry Fox is the one we didn't have a picture for, so she was on the teams too, and is not pictured there. Very photogenic group. But leaders, as you can see across the center, not just technical, but also mission support. These are the folks that are helping make things happen, and they really helped me because they worked very hard over the last 2 weeks, or 2 months rather. Then we had a senior staff retreat in July. Then we've had senior councils for half a days. Then we've had reports at senior staff for an hour or so here and there. A lot of work, and we came up really with 3 opportunities that I'm going to walk through now. So, great team, and so our vision is really, and we came up with a vision statement, and you'll see that at the end. I don't want to give that away too soon. So here we go. So here's the first opportunity. We call Shape the Future. So this is to position JSC to lead the development of human exploration architecture for Lunar and Mars. So it's a big statement, but there's a lot of pieces to it. And some of them are more tactical, like getting ready to stand up the Gateway program. We know there's already a lot of work going on with Gateway, so now the program and the program work coming to JSC, how are we going to manage that? How do we use the skills we have to go do that work? This program is smaller. If you look in the size, it's much smaller than ISS, but I think actually it might be much more complicated as far as the integration when you think about, first of all, we're out past the moon. Second of all the partnerships that we're going to have to keep tied together to make this work. So that's number one. That's an example of a challenge that we have, first part. The second part is, if you think about the lunar region, and the Vice President talked a lot about the moon, how can we help HEO, Gerstenmaier, identify how we should tie the whole lunar region together, including the gateway, including the surface? How do we tie that together? We have skills right here at JSC. We've been supporting that in the past. How do we help and enhance our support of Gerstenmaier's and NASA's strategy for the moon? That's number 2. And then the third thing is really a partnership kind of thing. If you think about the moon, and Tony Mumford, who's one of Bill's deputies, I think said this very well. If you think about the lunar region and think about how about we consider today that where NASA in the future around the moon, where NASA is one of many customers around the moon, or at the moon, and you think about starting that way rather than ending that way like we're trying on station, how might you put together a construct differently? So how do you ask different entities, right? IPs, commercial, traditional, universities, how do you put together some kind of a consortium to have that dialogue? I think that's something that we can help headquarters and HEO do very well, because we have the most experience in the world, frankly, in partnering with people and putting things together like that. So to me, this is an example of we have a NASA goal, and how do we listen to other people and unite around common goals to achieve a really, really difficult mission. So that's an example of this. And we're going to have to dare to push back past some frontiers, some boundaries that we've seen in the past to make that happen. One way I like to think about this is that as we depart LEO, we're going to take on new challenges that have higher risks, and we need to meet those challenges, as we always do, with unquestioned technical competence and successfully complete incredible history-making missions. So this is a really big deal for us, but this is kind of what we do and who we are. So that's number 1. Again, we have to do this in concert with HEO and the other directorates at headquarters, because we're supporting them and doing this, but that's number 1. Number 2 is really more internal. How do we enhance our value? So this is about envisioning our roles for the future, enabling an agile and flexible workforce, and embracing diverse perspectives. So if you think about this, one way is think about evolving our workforce and capabilities to enhance our ability to execute the future. So we already do great things. We need to do great things in the future. So our roles have in the past and will in the future change. It's just part of life. It's the way it should be. So we need to plan for that. What is our job going to be in the future? And how do we create a process so we can adapt to those changing roles? And also, we need the best team. We need the best team. So our diversity inclusion efforts are absolutely part of this. They're not some ancillary thing we do on the side. So that's what this is. So this, again, this is another example of we need to push past our assumed limits and frontiers of what we think our jobs are and start thinking about the future, or think more about the future, sorry. And to get our full job done, we have to continue to unite with our workforce partners on the goals and strategies they have to make sure we can execute this work. So that's number 2, enhance our value. So the third one is achieve a mission tempo. So again, if you think about this is more tactical, and it's about getting ready for these launches from Florida and what it means to overall to JSC and to NASA. So I want to be clear, this is not, hey, you need to work harder. That's not what this is about. The vast majority of you are working extremely hard, right? I know that. This is about the leadership and the workforce taking action to enable you, with the time you're spending at work, to meet the commitments that we've been given. And this is not new for us. If you've been here a while, you know we flew the shuttle after the accident, right? We had a process. We had to get through that. We recertified. We flew. Station from nothing, right? We built the station. We added some partners that can be difficult to integrate. We did a great job. We certified it. We flew it. So we know how to do this. And every time we've done it, it's been hard because it's hard work. So this is about lining up things so we can do that job. That's really what it's about. So if you start with, I'll start with the top. If you start with roles and responsibilities, one of the best things you can do to be effective is to know what your job is. What is my job? What's your job? If that's clear, we're going to have the best chance to succeed quickly. We know that Commercial Crew has created some very innovative partnerships at all levels, including how we're going to certify. And even Orion is different than Shuttle and ISS. If you've been in those programs, you know even Orion is different. Sometimes it's called traditional, but in some ways it's very different. So we, NASA, still carry overall responsibility for the safety of our crew, but some of our roles are different than we've seen in the past. And it's critical that everyone understand their role compared to others and providers, for example. So the key is, as we move forward, to, if you're not sure what your role is in signing that piece of paper, your job is to have a conversation with your bosses and bring it up so we can talk about it, right? That's not unusual. It's not unusual. I've experienced it. That's what this is about. So if you're not sure, bring it up. And I know, so I have challenged the programs and the directorates at the leadership level to engage in these discussions with each others and within their organizations, and including issues that may have been raised before and are not yet resolved. So that's what this is about. This is very important. It's hard to do. We've done it before. We're going to work through this too. Balancing risks. So this is a challenging topic. We know spaceflight is inherently risky, and it's our job. This is what we do. Again, it's our job to balance risk and opportunity so we can fly the mission safely and successfully. That's what we do. We need to make sure that we're effectively identifying risks, communicating and accepting risks at the right level. So I want to be clear, this is not a veiled attempt to tell you to sign your piece of paper and get over it. That's not at all what this is, right? This is a complex subject that the management is talking about. It's about making sure that we're communicating on risks and we're bringing it to the right level and having the right conversations. So we're not done on this subject. I even considered taking it off the chart because I didn't want to confuse things, but I think it's an important subject, especially as we go out into deep space. So we're leaving it open. There are no specific actions, but it's something I think it's very important for all of us to keep talking about. Decision velocity, you might have seen that word many times. We need to continue to make sound and timely decisions, especially as we get closer to flight. A part of this is, and a lot of this is at the management level, we need to make sure that we ensure decisions and the context of those decisions are captured, understood, and communicated effectively. Sometimes that can add a lot of confusion as you move fast and you go, did we decide that? Where did we decide that? So this is very important to do. For Ryan and commercial crew, it's time to focus on the things required to enable us to fly. We need to prioritize the critical work. I know people are doing that, but we need to reemphasize that. And we need to minimize the reviews and meetings. So it's easy to say that, but as you roll into certification, you're going to see more of that coming. So first of all, number one, I've challenged the team to identify when you think you're churning on an issue. If you feel like you've done everything you can and now it's time to bring it forward, I urge you to talk to your bosses and bring it up. For the leaders, I'm expecting that when they make decisions, that they'll communicate them in a sound and timely manner. And third, I've challenged the leadership team to identify opportunities where it can streamline processes, and a lot of these have to do with getting ready for certification, getting ready for FRR. There's a lot of centers involved in both of these programs, and if we're not careful, we're going to have a ton of meetings that may not have value. So, for example, on commercial crew, I know I've offered to Bob, I've offered to Bob Commander, I'll go to your meeting. I don't need another meeting for myself, right? Let's do this together. So these are examples how we can help reduce the overhead and get to flight. Schedule uncertainty. So schedules are a challenge in any program. I've never been in one where that was not the case. You might not know, but those poor commercial crew dudes, you know, they had a requirement. You could not officially publish a new launch date for either provider until Congress had seen the report. So you can imagine, I won't even go how that happened, but you can imagine how hard that was in the process, how long that delayed. So you might be frustrated by understanding what the dates were, but you need to recognize the constraints that they were under. Well, now I know for sure that now that is in the past. As we get closer, we're able to talk clearer and sooner about the dates. I personally am a big believer in aggressive schedules. If you've worked for me, you know that that's the case. But there's a point where aggressive schedule causes negative work. You're doing stuff too early. You're going to have to do it again. You're wasting your time, right? Or you feel like you're working 80 hours a week and the date's going to move. So why are you doing that, right? And eventually you're going to burn yourself out. So what I've challenged senior staff to do, and we've started this, is to increase the dialogue on the schedules and the resulting work priorities that allows them and you to plan your work in a more effective manner. So we've already had some really good conversation at senior staff, starting with commercial crew, about what these launch dates look like at the end of the year. And I appreciate what the commercial crew folks have done in prioritizing the one provider that looks like they're going to fly earlier, so engineering and safety and the rest of you can plan your work. This is exactly what this is about. Again, it's not string theory, but it's something leadership can do to help the team do its job. Okay, so let me summarize this piece. I want to emphasize this really clearly. So we have a lot of work to do to get to launch, and you are doing a great job in getting us ready for launch. And I want to be clear that you should rest assured that we are going to launch when we are ready. You know there'll be difficult choices to make. This is what's happened in the past. But we're going to have the appropriate conversations on the risk at the levels we need to have it. Gerst has said it. You can trust Bill. Kirk has said it. Kathy said it. I'm saying it. I've signed my name to certifications of flight. I've run the ISS MMT. Today, I signed for the crew. So I'm telling you, we're not going to launch till we're ready. So all this stuff that we're talking about is really about helping the team make sure we do everything we can to enable our ability to really be ready when it's time, okay? So I want to be clear on that, and I hope if you're confused, you will ask me a question today about that. So just giving you a hint, you can ask me a question about that. So this is the guts of what we're talking about, and you'll notice the first two are kind of more general, and they're going to be more strategic, and they're going to take more time. The third one's more tactical, right, in the next couple of years, now in the next couple of years. But what we did then, we said, okay, we see all this work, and I've talked to you, given you some clues about the things that's going to challenge us, so we turned this into a vision statement, and the vision statement really boils down to 3 words, but I'll give you the background. So if we go to, there we go. our vision statement is we dare to expand frontiers, we unite with our partners to complete bold missions, and we explore space to benefit humanity. So pretty straightforward. So if you got some hints as I went through the other stuff, but if I talk about it, dare, what does dare mean? So, and frontiers is really not just about a destination. A frontier can be a limit that I've placed on myself or a limit on what I expect to happen. And those limits are not just technical. As I said, these apply to mission support as well. Very much apply to mission support as well. We challenge ourselves. That's what daring is about. We interrogate our processes. We look at new ways of partnering, like fostering a space economy in LEO and at the moon. Innovation, right? To me, that's incorporated in that dare part. Unite. So, we have a mission. NASA has a mission. It starts with the Space Policy Directive that Jim did a great job of explaining and the Vice President mentioned. So we have a mission. But in order for us to do bold missions, part of our job is to unite around common goals with our other partners in order to get the most out of what we have to do these bold missions. So that's a really big deal. And remember, partners can be it can be an international partner, it can be a commercial partner, a traditional company partner, it can be in a contract, it will be across centers. We partner very well with other centers. That is part of our job too. Across directorates, all these things, right? We're partnering to do these bold missions, and it's required really to do that. So exploration, I don't think I have to describe that to you. That's kind of what we do. It's how we lead human spaceflight. So anyway, I think we tested it out with some other folks. We thought it was good. Kind of got the points across crisply, and so you'll see it more like this, or like this. So you decide if you like linear or circular. But you can do either one. And there again is where you can do questions. So, as we move forward to achieve the next giant leaps in human exploration, we have opportunities to solve difficult, exciting problems to accomplish the new bold missions we have in front of us. So I appreciate everything you do. I appreciate the leaders that helped put this strategy together. I appreciate those of you who will support these teams going forward, because we will change the teams based on these focus areas that I mentioned, and continue to do this incredible work. We have a very, very exciting few years in front of us. It'll be more challenging, I think, than we've seen in a while. But I'm thrilled to be here and thrilled to be working with you every day. So that's my speech. And so now we have questions. And Isidro, per our agreement, is going to read the top voted questions. So it's your own fault, depending on what's coming up.
All right, Mark, the first question had 135 upvotes, and it pertains to telework. So can you please clarify?
Those folks are not here, probably. Yeah.
Yep. The question is, can you please clarify what your telework policy is, and what's your policy on telework logs, and why are some orgs allowed to require employees to complete logs and others don't?
Sorry, was the logs, was that the word? Complete logs, telework logs?
Complete logs.
Okay, well, I'm not aware of that, by the way, so maybe I'm clueless. So we have rules that are put in place to allow us to have a flexible workforce. They are part of what NASA allows for the work to be done. So if we're meeting those rules and we have a talented workforce, they don't have to be sitting at their desks to do their job. So that's my personal opinion. I don't know about the logs thing. I guess I can find out a little bit more about why that's maybe not consistent, but I believe telework is part of what we do, and there's a reason that we have that capability. So,
okay. Next question, 94 upvotes. There's a rumor that you are reverting back to a 40-hour work week and eliminating Flex Friday. Is this true? And if so, what is the rationale behind it?
So you have to work 40 hours a week. That's not changed. The question is whether you have to do it in 10 days or 9 days, right? So anyway, so I went through our recommendations. We have not made a recommendation on that. It's funny, I went to Marshall, and Jody's doing a great job becoming a leader there, and she asked me, hey, what do you think about Flex Friday? And I'm hearing a rumor that you're going to kill it. At Marshall, that's funny. I'm going to kill it at Marshall, but I don't know about JSC. I know a lot of people are worried about this because I get this question a lot. So let me just say, it hasn't risen to the level of priority compared to these other things that we talked about today. So we haven't made a decision, yes or no, and I'm just telling you the priority was what we talked about today. That doesn't mean we won't talk about that, and I know you're worried about it because a lot of people keep asking me about it. So we haven't made a decision, and that doesn't mean we're going to do anything. I just let you know. So really, we haven't even talked about it, barely even talked about it once at the retreat. So that doesn't mean people don't have strong feelings about it, but I'm just telling you these were the priorities so far for us. So.
Okay, next question. Do we really believe Gateway will bring meaningful work to JSC beyond the program oversight?
Yeah, so I absolutely do believe that it will bring meaningful work to JSC because Gateway needs leadership in pulling all the pieces and the partners and the centers together on a very difficult mission, and I think that's what we do. That's what we do. It won't be big. It's not going to be, Station is a big organization because it's extremely complicated and it's a very large, complex piece of hardware and a lot of partners and a lot of different things. That the Gateway's much smaller. Remember, it's human-tended. It's out past the moon. So it has a lot of complexities, but I don't expect it to be a big program. But it will be difficult, and I can tell you every day, it is my belief that these are the kind of things that we tackle and that we're really good at it. So yes, it will be meaningful, and it's critical to NASA that it be done well. So yeah, good question though.
Okay, the next couple of questions, they're very close in voting. First, can we please get the clock at the front gates on the electronic sign fixed to show the right time?
Joel's on it. I got the thumbs up. Yeah, we're going to tie it to the atomic clock if you could. That would be really good. Yeah.
Next question. How can JSC employees find out about jobs and other opportunities related to developing and supporting the lunar platform or Gateway?
Oh, good. Okay, so how can you find out about job opportunities in the lunar area and the Gateway? That's a great question. So first we have to get, we are in the midst of working the agreement with Gerstenmaier and his team on exactly what are all the roles that we'll have and exactly when, if they're roles that were previously somewhere else or they're expanding, which will happen, when those transitions occur. So we're still working on those dates, but we're very close to that. I expect, within the next month, we're going to be able to talk about, okay, what's coming here, what our jobs are going to be, and what are the kind of, what our transition thoughts are. So yeah, great question. I expect within the next month or two, we'll be able to have more dialogue on that exact question. So good.
Okay. In the past month, both our new administrator, Jim Bridenstine, and VP Mike Pence have brought up Space Force to the community. What are the expectations of Johnson Space Center for this new initiative and our role as a non-defense organization?
Yeah, great question again about Space Force. So Jim, so first of all, I just like to say, and I've said it before, I really like working for Jim. Jim, why do I like working for Jim? One, he's a really nice person. One, he's extremely bright. I don't have to say things to him twice, even though you might feel like you have to tell me things twice. I don't feel like to tell Jim things twice. And he knows what his job is, right? And his job is to understand the policy, and his job is to work with Gerstenmaier and Zurbuchen and the centers to go implement the policy. So, and he has a really good sense for these policy things. So he said it very well. He said, our job, NASA's job is exploration and discovery. Our job is not defense. Right? Never has been. Now, that doesn't mean we don't synergize with them around common goals sometimes when they need things launched or we have a satellite system that they would like to use too, right? We do that sometimes. Sometimes in more detail than other times. But so space, the way I understand and hear Jim describe Space Force very clearly is this is really about defending space because space is so critical to us. There are NASA assets included in that list of things that you would like to be able to defend, clearly. But our job is not to do that defense, right? Our job is discovery and exploration. The Defense Department's job is to do that. And Space Force, in my understanding, is to create a focused view about space and defending space, where now I think there's a feeling that while the Air Force does an awesome job, they have a role on the Earth too, and maybe it's best to start focusing, really have someone focus strictly on space. So that's my understanding. It's my understanding that that's not a threat to our budget. It's my understanding that we will not be weaponizing space. That's not our job. Our job is exploring and discovery. So we'll work with this entity just like we work with the Air Force and our other partners who fly things in space. We'll keep working with them, but it's not our job. So.
Okay, next question. Will replacing JSC's aging infrastructure, labs, equipment, etc., have a significant role as we prepare to return to the moon?
Yes, I'm glad they said infrastructure. I was a little worried about the aging part. Yes, replacing infrastructure, aging infrastructure. So I think Robert Lightfoot has set us up pretty well on that plan, and JERS continues to help us with that. You know, this is really an agency question. The agency has infrastructure across the breadth of its 10 centers. Much of it now is 50 years old or older if you're at Langley and Ames, right? Some of it's been there since the early part of that century. So how do we make decisions on what to keep? Because some of this upkeep or modification costs a lot of money, right? We saw what it took to create Plumbrook took quite a bit of money. So the agency is thinking and focused on what capabilities need to stay and how we upgrade it. So we'll participate in that. I think obviously there's some key things that JSC does that no one else does. There are things that we do depending on a particular mission, like our thermal vac, right? Capability that was really needed for the country for James Webb. So I know that that's a key piece of infrastructure that JSC provides. It does not necessarily link to our human spaceflight capability. We have a curation facility that's where anytime somebody brings something back from another world, it's curated right here at JSC. That building is 50 years old, and if you were inside it on Thursday, you could tell. Well, thanks to Joel for painting the hallways. That was really nice, yeah. But so there's a building that I know science is thinking hard about, okay, as we start thinking about Mars samples, how do we make sure we have a facility that meets that? So I think the agency is doing the right thing. Let's think about the missions. Let's think about the capabilities. Let's look across all of NASA and figure out where the best place is to invest our money. So more to come on that.
Okay, next question. A lot of senior staff has been in place for almost a decade. Do you think that causes stagnation in innovation at JSC?
Well, it's a good question about if you're talking about pushing the boundaries, do you have people who think about those things in the right way? I think that's a good question. I would say, and I'd have to go back and look at the people. I don't think many of us have been there 10 years. I guess maybe I have, in a different role. I guess I've moved around in that case. But if I look at the folks, the actual leadership, I don't believe. But anyway, so the question is, are we an innovative? I would say maybe turn around a little bit. Is it an innovative organization? And I would look at the folks in those positions and look at their history. And I think of the transitions that we've gone through, whether it's the programs, or I think about especially even mission support, and I look at the leadership in those areas and what they have done to really change the world and change NASA's ability to execute things, whether it's legal or procurement or CIO, CFO, you know, and the programs. I think we have a very strong and innovative leadership team. Now, we got some challenges in front of us that we're going to have to continue to show that we can be flexible and think of new ways of doing things to get our job done. And so that's a big challenge for everybody, but it starts with the leadership. So when I look at those things we've challenged ourselves to do. The leaders are the first ones, right, that have to make that attempt. So,
Okay. Next question. How do you promote and encourage the message about the anti-harassment campaign released by Mr. Lightfoot?
Well, yeah, so I guess well, let me say this way. So the anti-harassment initiative is extremely important. You know, we've had, this is something that we need to keep our eye on, as I see, and clearly you see that in the press. This is something that's part of what's happening at this country. We take it extremely seriously, so we put key leaders in responsible for hearing those and resolving those. I feel like we do broadcast who are the people that you should be talking to. If that's not the case, I'd like to know that, because it implies that maybe it's not as clear. But we have specific folks that are named as our anti-harassment chairs, and we have in the organizations at JSC that support that, we put our top leaders on those cases, and I've seen that in action. So.
Next question. In what ways will JSC use an increase in financial support as mentioned by the Vice President?
Can you read it again?
In what ways will JSC use an increase in financial support as mentioned by the Vice President?
Okay, how will we use that extra money? So this is First, we're going to execute the programs we've been given, and some of that extra money allows them to execute within the dates we've committed. You know, if you're in one of those programs, you usually talk or communicate the needs, and you've seen that before where most of those have been squeezed in the past. My hope is some of this will allow us to execute the programs that we've been given. Today, as I mentioned, the Gateway program, Gerstenmaier is still thinking, we're still working together about what the next steps are, and he's still working on exactly what that wedge of money to execute those early elements looks like. There will be elements that will be, certainly we will do the integration and the program management. There will be elements that will be led out of JSC, and so we're still working on exactly how those procurements, what they would look like. As far as the bigger future for the moon, I'd say that strategy is still in work, but the support and the focus on the mission puts us in a really good place. So the specifics, I think, as far as Gateway and beyond, are still in work, but they'll be meaningful and they'll be important jobs.
You've got about 15 minutes left, Mark, so a couple more.
Okay.
What sort of effort is being made to secure Gateway or assist lunar work in the event of an administration change in 2020?
Yeah, so maybe there's two questions there. I would say, so here's an example. How do we survive the next transition? And I don't know when it'll be, right? It could be 2 years, could be 6 years, but it will happen, right? And we just went through a couple. I've been here 28 years, so I've been through a few. So this is an example of why Bill Gerstenmaier is so important where he is. One of the tenets that he talks about, which is extremely important, is continuity. It's continuity. Because this center has seen how bad it can be when we cancel big programs without a plan, and the huge impact it has not only on the workforce and on our daily lives, but also on the ability of the country to execute bold missions, right? The starting and stopping is horrible. So Bill has done a great job in, I would say, creating a strategy that tries to be agnostic to significant policy changes. In other words, it's all about getting us deeper into the solar system and allowing us to extend human exploration further and further in the solar system. The Gateway is a great example of that in my mind. The Gateway is not optimized for the lunar surface. It never was. If you were going to go, if your only thing was to get to the surface of the moon, you probably wouldn't build a Gateway. What the Gateway does, though, is it allows you to have a sustainable architecture. It allows you to reuse key parts of what you might send to the surface. It allows you to access all sorts of areas around the moon. It allows you to have a nice orbit where eventually you can build a transport vehicle to take you to Mars. So it does all these things, not optimized for any one thing, but it's all about, here's a system that can do all these different missions. So if the policies change, your systems are built to adapt to that. This is really, really, really important. I remember we were doing Orion and SLS, and people were saying, well, we're going to Mars. Well, they support that mission, absolutely. They also happen to support going to the moon. So again, you try to build systems that allow you to support many missions so that you can, I would say, weather these policy changes that do come. So.
Next question. Given this administration's strong budgetary support for NASA, will this allow for more civil servant hiring opportunities to ensure adequate support of our near-term and future missions?
So, great question. So when you look at the enhance our value part of that is, first let's think about what our job is going to be. What's the government's job? And then when I said agile and flexible, it's, okay, what's the best way to do our job that allows us to be flexible? So I don't see big increases in civil servant hiring. I just don't think that's the approach. I don't see big dips in civil servant hiring, so don't run out of here. We're going to do a RIF. Yeah. It's not the case. But we need to think about, in the long term, what jobs need to be civil servants, right? And which jobs could be done either by our talented contractor workforce or maybe some other entity. We do a lot of arrangements, IPAs, JPL does an FFRDC. There are other ways of getting work done. How might we think we could do that work that allows us to be flexible? So no, I don't expect a big jump in civil servants, but I do want us to think about how we create a long-term plan that allows us to have a flexible workforce. Yeah.
Next question is, are you planning a reorg?
A reorg?
A reorganization.
No, not today. I think you look at those initiatives and say, what is our job in the future? And so if you're going to think about what our job in the future and what the programs are, is it likely that in 5 years or so you would want to move some things around to line up better with the new mission? Sure, but we're not to that point yet. And so today, no reorg in the plan.
Okay, we have 10 minutes left. Mission Support Directorates will soon be moving to the Mission Support Architecture Program, or MAP. What is the largest challenge here?
So if you came for Dan Tenney's presentation or any of Robert Lightfoot's presentation or Melanie Saunders' presentation at one of our all hands, you've seen that one of the initiatives that Robert started and Jerzik is continuing is that they're looking at for mission support functions. So obvious examples of this would be human resources and CFO and procurement and others. They're looking at trying to, across the 10 centers, figure out ways to, I would say, be more efficient across that work. In order to do that, they're starting to organize differently, and which I think actually, so I completely agree with the strategy. The implementation, right, as they say, the details matter, and we're in the middle of figuring out how to implement that. At the beginning, there's 3 organizations that are doing this transition now, some form of transition, and that's HR, OLIA, which is our legislative affairs folks, and CFO. So they're starting this transition in the fall, and as part of that, I'll give you an example. In the HR folks, they will start reporting up to headquarters rather than reporting to me. One of the interesting things is they create these new leadership positions. Turns out they're hiring Johnson people, because maybe Johnson people know how to do that. So that just tells you the kind of leaders that we have, and that makes me more comfortable as the strategy goes forward that these folks actually know what happens in a center and can make it done efficiently. But the way I look at it, first of all, I've been in programs most of my life. Most of the people that supported the programs were matrixed. They did not work directly for me, and yet they were essential to making the mission happen, and yet we collaborated, talked about strategies, prioritized together, worked together. So to me, this is not really different. We're going to have an HR rep that's going to be just like the HR leader we have today, that's going to be working with me and working with my leadership team. It just so happens they're going to be reporting up through headquarters. And all the folks that do this incredible work to make our human resources offices work and get our work done are still going to be right here doing that work for you. So it's a subtle change, But the mission support functions are just as important today, if not more important, than they've ever been. And we're going to work through that with them and with headquarters to make sure that we get the support we need and make sure they know, everybody should know, that they are as much a part of JSC as they've ever been. So I think that's real important, and I look forward to keep working that. Again, I think the idea, the strategy of being more efficient across 10 centers makes sense to me, and now we just got to work through the implementation.
Okay, 2 questions. The White House has recently directed NASA to study the possibility of converting one or more of its field centers into FFRDCs like JPL. What is the status of this study, and is it likely that JSC will be selected?
So there's no likelihood that JSC will be selected. So if you're thinking I'm going to get that Caltech salary, sorry, it's not going to happen. An FFRDC, I've forgotten the acronym, but basically it's an entity that the government can set up, and they can behave like government employees. They have certain rules about how FFRDCs work. You know, aerospace is one, JPL is one. So yeah, OMB, frankly, is, well, so we have a goal to go look at how we might become more flexible. OMB has asked NASA to look at that in general, and there is a study today that's been done, and they're going up to OMB. I really don't know what the results are going to be. I know for a fact they are not recommending centers transition to that. They're talking about whether it might be capabilities, and I think we're still debating how that would really help us. You know, I feel like we have extreme capability with our civil servants and contractor workforce, so I'm not sure why we would need a third option, but you know, we're still talking about it. So no recommendations yet today that I say affect us at all yet. Yeah.
Okay, Mark, last question. Is there a focused plan to address the aging workforce at JSC in a shrinking CMO budget environment?
Those are 2 questions. Let's see. Let me talk about CM&O budget. So that's the budget that a lot of the mission support work, as well as our tech authority and other things that help this center keep running. And as they do this new initiative, this MAP initiative, some of those budgets will start going to headquarters. So we will have a challenge in that we used to be able to take that bigger pot and move risks around and adapt. And so we're working with headquarters is exactly how that's going to work now as they're starting to pull some of those budgets up to Washington. So we had a great process here, which included risks and open communication about that, just like tech orgs do. So we had one here. So working with headquarters to make sure that if they're going to take the budget, they're going to take the risks too, and then they're going to work with us on how to deal with those things at the center level. Aging workforce, I would say, we all know, we've seen the curve about where that is. You know, to me, that's part of this enhancing the value. We actually are, so I'm a little biased. I think we're blessed by the experience level that we have at the center based on all the things that we've done, that we've gone through and succeeded. So I think that's a very positive thing. There is a point where people like to retire. You know, they'd like to have a life, get back to working 40 hours a week. Or not having to work 40 hours a week. So, you know, a lot of our strategy includes new hires. We try to push toward more fresh outs when we're hiring folks to try to help that balance, and those people bring a new perspective, which is good. But I would say that, you know, that is part of our overall plan. And so this other thing about thinking about where we are going to go, maybe there are jobs that in 10 years we won't need. So when people in an area retire, we just don't fill those with civil servants. We might go get that job out of a contractor job. So we're not looking to push people out, but when they retire, we might not backfill all those same jobs with civil servant spots. So that's an example of how we might adapt to that. So
those are all our questions.
Okay. All right. Thanks. Thank you very much.